Homeless woman finds a millionaire's wallet while looking for a job on the street. He fell madly. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. On a crisp autumn morning, the city of New York bustled with its usual noise. Honking cars, chattering pedestrians, and the distant hum of street vendors selling their goods. Amidst the frenzy, a woman named Emily shuffled along the sidewalk. Her clothes were worn, a bit too large for her slender frame, and her shoes were scuffed from months of walking the same streets. She was homeless, surviving by the grace of a few odd jobs and the kindness of strangers. Her dream was simple: to find a steady job, a roof over her head, and a way to build a better life for herself. She had a small notebook where she sketched her dreams, a small comfort in a life full of uncertainty. As she walked past a row of expensive boutiques, something caught her eye: a wallet lying on the ground. It was sleek, black leather, unmistakably expensive. She knelt down to pick it up, her fingers trembling slightly. Inside, there were crisp $100 bills and several credit cards. At that moment, she was struck by an overwhelming temptation to take it, to keep it, to finally have something she could call her own. But as she stared at the wallet, a wave of guilt washed over her. Emily was no thief. She had always believed in doing right, no matter the circumstances. She couldn't take what wasn't hers. The decision was made. She tucked the wallet under her arm and began walking in search of its owner. It wasn't long before she reached the address on one of the cards, an upscale office building in the heart of downtown. Emily took a deep breath before walking inside. The receptionist glanced up at her, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked politely. "I found this," Emily said, handing over the wallet. "It belongs to a Mr. James Caldwell. I believe he works here." The receptionist's eyebrows raised in surprise. "Mr. Caldwell?" "Yes, he's one of our top executives. Please, follow me." Emily's heart raced as they walked through the sleek, glass-walled corridors. She had never been inside a building like this before. The polished floors reflected the light from the high ceilings, and the air smelled of expensive cologne and fresh flowers. She felt out of place, like an outsider in a world she could never belong to. When they reached Mr. Caldwell's office, the receptionist knocked softly on the door. "Come in," a deep voice called from within. Emily stepped inside, and there, sitting behind a massive mahogany desk, was a man who looked like he belonged in a magazine cover. Mr. James Caldwell, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, looked up in surprise as Emily entered. He stood quickly, his expression shifting from confusion to curiosity. "How can I help you?" he asked. Emily held out the wallet, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found this outside. I believe it's yours." Mr. Caldwell took the wallet, his fingers brushing against hers for a brief moment. He stared at her for a second, then smiled warmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice smooth and sincere. "You've saved me a lot of trouble." Emily nodded, her face flushing slightly. She was about to leave when he stopped her. "Wait a moment," he said. "Let me get you something for your trouble." He reached for his wallet and pulled out a $100 bill. "No, thank you," Emily quickly replied, backing away. "I didn't do it for money." Mr. Caldwell watched her for a moment, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Then why did you return it?" he asked. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said quietly. He studied her for a long time, then put the bill back into his wallet. "I admire your honesty," he said. "It's rare these days. Tell you what, how about I offer you a job? I could use someone like you in my company." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "A job? But I'm not qualified for anything here." He smiled again, his expression kind. "You'd be surprised what a little honesty and hard work can get you. Come by tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do." Emily stood there, in stunned silence. Could this really be happening? A job offer from a millionaire, just for returning his wallet? She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Little did she know, this simple act of kindness was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one she never saw coming. The next morning, Emily stood outside the sleek glass building, her hands trembling slightly. She had never felt more out of place in her life. The polished stone floors, the well-dressed people moving swiftly around her, all felt like a different world. She had no idea what to expect from this meeting. Was she really going to get a job? She wasn't sure, but she had to try. She had nothing to lose. She walked through the revolving doors and approached the receptionist, who greeted her with a polite smile. "Good morning, Mississippi. Mr. Caldwell is expecting you," the receptionist said, gesturing to the elevators. Emily nodded and stepped inside. The elevator ride felt like an eternity, each floor passing slowly as her mind raced with thoughts of what was about to happen. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a bright, modern office. The walls were lined with beautiful artwork, and the view of the city from the windows was breathtaking. She walked towards the large wooden desk where Mr. Caldwell was sitting, looking every bit as polished as he had the day before. "Good morning, Emily. I'm glad you could make it," he said with a warm smile. "Please, have a seat." Emily sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She could feel her heart racing, but she did her best to stay calm. "I wasn't expecting anything like this," she said quietly, glancing around the room. "I just wanted to return the wallet. I didn't think it would lead to a job offer." Mr. Caldwell leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her carefully. "I believe in rewarding honesty, and I believe in giving people a chance, especially when they show integrity. What you did yesterday, well, it showed me a lot about your character. You didn't just return the wallet. You chose to do what was right, no matter how hard it was. That's the kind of person I want in my company." Emily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, but at the same time, she couldn't help but feel like she was dreaming. She had been living on the streets for so long that the idea of having a stable job, a steady income, felt almost impossible. "I don't have much experience in an office setting," she said hesitantly. "I'm not sure I can do the kind of work you need." Mr. Caldwell smiled again, his expression softening. "We all start somewhere. I'm offering you a role, not because of what you've done in the past, but because of the potential I see in you. I think you'll surprise yourself." Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "What would the job involve?" she asked. Mr. Caldwell leaned forward, his hands resting on the desk. "You'll start as an assistant in our community outreach program. It's a chance to learn, to get familiar with the work we do. I believe it will give you the opportunity to prove yourself, and we'll take it from there." Emily nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. She had always wanted to help people, to make a difference, but she never imagined that someone like Mr. Caldwell would give her the chance. She thought of her son, of the life she wanted to give him, and suddenly, this job didn't feel so out of reach anymore. "I'll do my best," she said quietly. Mr. Caldwell extended his hand, and Emily shook it, the weight of the moment settling in. "I believe in you, Emily," he said. "I think you'll do great things here." As she left the office, her mind was still spinning. She had a job, a real job. It wasn't just the start of something new for her. It was the beginning of a future she had never dared to imagine. She knew that this was just the beginning, and she was ready to face whatever came next. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt hope. It was small, but it was there, and it was enough to keep her moving forward. Days passed, and Emily settled into her new role at Caldwell Enterprises. The work was demanding, but it was the first time in a long while that she felt valued. She started as an assistant in the community outreach program, working alongside a small, dedicated team. Her tasks were simple at first, answering calls, organizing events, and helping out with the company's charity drives. But even these small tasks felt like a victory. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was contributing. As she got to know her colleagues, she noticed how differently they treated her now that she had a role in the company. They were kind, supportive, and made her feel like she belonged. Emily had always felt like an outsider, but now, she was part of something important. One afternoon, Mr. Caldwell called her into his office. She had seen him a few times since their first meeting, but their interactions had been brief, and he had always kept his distance. Emily felt a twinge of nervousness as she walked through the door. "Emily, how's everything going?" Mr. Caldwell asked, looking up from a pile of papers on his desk. "Good, really good," she replied, offering a tentative smile. "I'm learning a lot. Thank you again for giving me this chance." He studied her for a moment, his gaze steady and thoughtful. "You're doing more than just learning, Emily. You're excelling. I've been watching your work, and I'm impressed." Emily blinked, surprised by his words. I didn't expect that. I'm just trying my best. Mr. Caldwell leaned forward, his expression serious. And that's exactly what I need in this company. I've been thinking about something. Emily's heart skipped a beat. What's that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to offer you a full-time position, he said. You've been a great asset to the team, and I believe you're capable of so much more. I think you're ready for a bigger role, one that challenges you more. Emily was speechless. This was more than she had ever hoped for. She had come into the job simply wanting to pay her bills, but now, it felt like the world was opening up to her in ways she couldn't have imagined. I don't know what to say, she said softly. Mr. Caldwell smiled. You don't need to say anything. I believe in you, Emily. This company believes in you, and we want you to grow with us. Her mind raced as she processed his words. Could she really handle a bigger role? Could she live up to his expectations? Doubts crept in, but Emily knew deep down that this was the chance she had been waiting for. For the first time in years, she felt like she had a future, a real future. She had made it this far, and with Mr. Caldwell's support, she could go even further. I'll do it, she said finally, her voice steady with resolve. I'll take the position. Mr. Caldwell nodded, his smile widening. I knew you would. I'm excited to see where this journey takes you, Emily. As she left his office, Emily felt a rush of emotions. She had come so far from the woman who had been living on the streets, struggling to survive. She had found more than just a job. She had found a purpose, a sense of belonging. And, for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could finally dream again. Weeks passed, and Emily began to settle even deeper into her new role at Caldwell Enterprises. She was now working full-time, managing community outreach projects, and even helping with some of the company's major charity events. Mr. Caldwell had kept his word, offering her not just a job, but a real opportunity to build a career. She was no longer just the woman on the streets looking for a break. Now, she was an integral part of a thriving organization. But with success came new challenges. Emily started to notice that she was becoming more involved in the business side of things. Mr. Caldwell often sought her input during meetings, asking her to help brainstorm ideas for new initiatives. She was becoming a trusted voice in the company, and though the work was harder than she ever imagined, it gave her a sense of pride she had never felt before. Still, as she spent more time at the office, her thoughts began to shift. She realized that she had not just found a job, she had found a purpose that was beginning to change her entire outlook on life. One afternoon, as she was working on a new charity event proposal, Mr. Caldwell called her into his office once again. This time, he was sitting behind his desk, staring at a few papers with a pensive expression. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she walked in. Emily, Mr. Caldwell began, looking up at her. I've been thinking a lot about where you're going with this company. You've done an incredible job, and I see a lot of potential in you. But I also see that you've been holding back. Emily was taken aback. What do you mean? She asked, unsure of where this conversation was headed. Mr. Caldwell leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly as he spoke. You're a smart, capable woman, Emily. You've proven that time and time again. But I think you're afraid to step up even further, to take on more responsibility. And I think that's because you're afraid of failing. Emily looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. Was he right? She had been given more responsibility at work, and while she thrived in many areas, she still doubted herself. Her past, her struggles, the feeling that she was never good enough, it all came flooding back. I'm not sure I can handle it, she whispered. I don't want to mess things up. I'm just so thankful to have this chance. Mr. Caldwell stood up and walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. Listen to me, Emily, he said gently. You've already overcome so much to get to this point, and I know you have the strength to face whatever comes next. But if you keep holding back, you'll never see just how far you can go. You're capable of more than you realize. His words struck a chord deep inside her. Emily had always played it safe, never wanting to risk failure, always waiting for the perfect moment. But deep down, she knew that the perfect moment would never come unless she made it happen. She had to push herself, trust herself, and embrace the opportunity she had worked so hard to earn. I'm ready, she said, her voice filled with a new sense of resolve. Mr. Caldwell smiled. I knew you would be. From that moment on, Emily embraced her new role with confidence. She began taking on bigger projects, speaking up more in meetings, and, most importantly, trusting her instincts. It wasn't always easy, but every time she stepped out of her comfort zone, she grew stronger. Slowly but surely, she was transforming, not just into the professional she had always wanted to be, but into the woman who could face any challenge head-on. And through it all, Mr. Caldwell continued to be a guiding force, offering her encouragement and support, but never holding her hand. He wanted her to succeed on her own terms, to find her own path. As the months passed, Emily started to realize that she wasn't just working for a paycheck anymore. She was building something meaningful, something that would change her life and the lives of those around her forever. Months passed, and Emily was no longer the shy assistant who had walked through the doors of Caldwell Enterprises, uncertain and overwhelmed. She had grown into her role, taking on bigger challenges, and had started to believe in herself more than ever before. Her projects were starting to gain recognition within the company, and her confidence had never been higher. Yet, despite her progress, a part of her still hesitated. She had been so focused on her career, on proving herself, that she hadn't really considered what was happening between her and Mr. Caldwell. He had been more than a mentor to her. His support and belief in her had given her the strength to push past her fears. But lately, she had begun to notice the way he looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, and the warmth in his smile. She tried to shake off the thoughts, telling herself that it was just her imagination. After all, he was her boss, and he had been nothing but professional. Still, it was hard to ignore the connection she felt. One evening, after a long day of planning a charity gala, Emily found herself walking back to the office alone. The building was quiet, the usual hum of activity now replaced by a stillness that made the night feel surreal. As she passed Mr. Caldwell's office, she paused, noticing that the light was still on. She knocked lightly, unsure if he was still there. "Come in," he called from inside. She stepped in, finding him sitting at his desk, his face serious as he went over some reports. "I just wanted to check in with you," Emily said softly. "How's the gala coming along?" Mr. Caldwell looked up, a smile playing at the corner of his lips. "It's coming together. You've done an excellent job organizing everything. I'm impressed as always." Emily felt a rush of pride at his words. "Thanks," she said, her voice a little breathless. She glanced at the clock on the wall, noticing how late it had gotten. "I should probably get going," she added. Mr. Caldwell stood up from his desk and walked over to the window, looking out at the city lights. The silence in the room felt heavier now, and Emily couldn't help but feel the tension building between them. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice deeper than usual. "There's something I need to say." Her heart skipped a beat. She turned to face him, her breath caught in her throat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her, his eyes intense, yet gentle. "I've been thinking a lot about you," he said, his words slow and deliberate. "Not just as an employee, but as someone I care about." Emily felt her pulse quicken. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat. Mr. Caldwell stepped closer, and the world outside the window seemed to fade away. "I care about you, Emily," he repeated, his voice softer now. "And I can't help but wonder if there's something more between us." The room seemed to close in around her, the weight of his words sinking in. She had always respected him, admired him, but this was different. Emily could feel her heart racing, but at the same time, a wave of calm washed over her. She had spent so long doubting herself, but in this moment, she realized that she was ready. Ready to trust him, ready to trust herself. "I care about you too," she whispered, her voice steady now. "But I don't want to risk everything we've built." He smiled gently and reached out to touch her hand. "We don't have to rush anything, Emily. But I think we both deserve to explore what's between us." For the first time in a long time, Emily felt the weight of uncertainty lift from her shoulders. She had spent so much time surviving, so much time worrying about her next step, that she had forgotten what it was like to truly live. With him by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. And in that moment, she knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful. Weeks passed since that night, and Emily's life had changed in ways she never thought possible. Her relationship with Mr. Caldwell had blossomed into something beautiful and real. At work, she continued to excel, taking on new responsibilities and making meaningful contributions to the company. But her personal life had also taken a new turn. She and Mr. Caldwell spent more time together outside the office. They shared quiet dinners at small, cozy restaurants and long walks through the city. Each day brought them closer, and Emily found herself learning not just about the business world, but about love, trust, and partnership. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when doubts crept in, moments when she feared that this life, this world, was too far from the one she had come from. But Mr. Caldwell was patient, always there to reassure her, to help her see that she belonged. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of his apartment, a place that felt more like home to her than any other, Mr. Caldwell turned to her with a serious look on his face. "Emily," he said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about us." She looked at him, her heart pounding. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure of what was coming next. He took her hand in his touch warm and steady. "I know we've been through a lot to get here," he began, his voice steady. "And I want you to know that I'm committed to you, to us. But there's something I need to ask." Emily's breath caught in her throat. "What is it?" she whispered. Mr. Caldwell smiled, a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "Will you marry me?" The words hung in the air between them, the quiet of the apartment making everything feel more intense. Emily felt her heart race. It wasn't the grand proposal she had imagined in her dreams. There were no fireworks, no crowd of people watching. But in that moment, she knew it was real. She had spent so many years wondering if she would ever find someone who truly saw her, someone who would accept her for who she was. And now, here she was, sitting next to the man who had done just that. He had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. "Yes," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, I will marry you." Mr. Caldwell's smile widened, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. "You've made me the happiest man in the world," he said, his voice thick with emotion. They sat there for a long while, holding each other, savoring the moment. Emily thought back to everything she had gone through to get to this point. The long nights, the struggles, the moments of doubt. But now it all felt worth it. She wasn't just the woman who had found a wallet on the street. She was someone who had found love and a future in the most unexpected of places. As the days passed, Emily and Mr. Caldwell began to plan their wedding. It wasn't a big affair, just a small ceremony with close friends and family. For Emily, it was everything she had ever wanted. A life filled with love, purpose, and the promise of a future that was bright. Looking back on everything, Emily realized that life had a way of surprising her. The woman who had once been invisible, who had struggled to survive, was now building a future with someone who saw her for who she truly was. She had found a home, not just in the city, but in the heart of the man who had given her a second chance at life. And as the day of their wedding approached, Emily knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning of their story. The days leading up to their wedding were filled with a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation. Emily could hardly believe how far she had come. From the woman who had once wandered the streets, hoping for a better life, to the woman preparing to marry the man who had changed everything for her. As she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her wedding dress, she couldn't help but think back to the night she had first returned Mr. Caldwell's wallet. That moment had set everything in motion. It had led her to a life she never imagined, a life filled with love, respect, and a future she had once thought impossible. Now, as the wedding day approached, Emily found herself facing a different kind of challenge. The happiness she had felt in the past months was tempered by a nagging fear. What if she wasn't worthy of this life? What if the woman she had once been, a woman who had nothing, was still inside her, waiting to ruin everything? She had tried to push these thoughts away, but they kept resurfacing, especially as the wedding day drew closer. Her mind would often wander to the idea that she didn't belong in the world of high society that Mr. Caldwell was part of. She had never been surrounded by wealth, privilege, or status. Could she truly fit in, or would she always be the outsider? Mr. Caldwell noticed the change in her demeanor. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, he reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You're nervous, aren't you?" he asked, his voice gentle. Emily glanced at him, her heart heavy. I don't know if I deserve this," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared that I'll mess everything up." He pulled her closer, his hand cupping her face with tenderness. "You deserve everything, Emily. You've worked so hard for everything you have, and you've never once let your past define you. You're not the person you were before. You're strong, smart, and capable. And most importantly, you're mine. His words were a balm to her soul, soothing her insecurities in a way that only he could. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to relax in his embrace, letting his love wash over her. The next morning, the wedding was everything Emily had dreamed of and more. It wasn't the extravagant affair she had once imagined, but it was perfect in its own way. Surrounded by a few close friends and family, she exchanged vows with Mr. Caldwell in a small, intimate ceremony. As she looked into his eyes, her heart swelled with love and gratitude. She had found the family she had always longed for, not just in him, but in the life they were about to build together. The ceremony was followed by a quiet reception, where they danced together under the soft glow of string lights. Emily felt like the luckiest woman in the world, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. As they drove away from the venue, hand in hand, she couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led her to this moment. The struggles, the challenges, the moments of doubt, they had all been worth it. She had come from nothing, but now, she had everything. And as the night sky stretched out before them, Emily knew that with Mr. Caldwell by her side, she could face anything that came their way. Together, they would build a life full of love, laughter, and endless possibilities. The future had never looked so bright. Months after their wedding, Emily had settled into a life she once thought was impossible. She had a loving husband, a fulfilling career, and most importantly, she felt truly at home, not just in the world of Caldwell Enterprises, but in the life they were building together. Yet, despite everything she had gained, there was one thing that still weighed heavily on her mind: her fear of losing herself in this new life. It was one of the many things she hadn't anticipated when she accepted Mr. Caldwell's proposal. The woman she had been, the woman who had once lived on the streets, struggled to survive, and faced life alone, still lived inside her. She feared that with all the success and love she had found, she might somehow lose the very essence of who she was. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of their apartment, Emily found herself lost in thought, staring out at the city lights. Mr. Caldwell noticed her distant look and gently placed his hand on hers. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice tender. Emily took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said softly. "I've come so far, and I'm grateful for everything. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm still the same person. I've changed, but I don't want to lose who I was before, the person who fought for everything." He looked at her with understanding in his eyes. "You're not losing yourself, Emily. You're evolving. You've grown in ways you never thought possible, but that doesn't erase the woman you were. It makes her stronger. The woman you were is still inside you, but now she has the love and the opportunities to become even more." His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing the uncertainty that had lingered in her heart. She realized that he was right. She didn't need to be afraid of change. It wasn't about losing her past. It was about integrating it into the woman she was becoming. She had spent so long trying to survive that she had forgotten what it meant to truly live. With Mr. Caldwell by her side, she didn't have to carry the weight of her past alone anymore. She could embrace her future, with all its challenges and triumphs. As the weeks went by, Emily became more confident in her new life. She continued to excel at work, contributing to projects that made a real difference in the community. But she also found time to nurture the part of her that had always wanted to help others. She volunteered at local shelters, using her experiences to guide and support those who were going through what she once had. Her relationship with Mr. Caldwell deepened, and their bond grew stronger. They didn't just support each other in their successes, they held each other up during the tough times, knowing that together, they could face anything. And in the quiet moments, when the world slowed down, Emily found herself looking at Mr. Caldwell with a sense of gratitude she could never quite put into words. He had shown her a life she never thought was possible, not just in terms of wealth and status, but in love, compassion, and purpose. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Mr. Caldwell leaned over, kissing her gently on the forehead. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "You found your way, Emily, and I know there's nothing you can't do." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with love for him. She had found a family in him, a life in this city, and most importantly, a future full of possibilities. With Mr. Caldwell by her side, she had everything she needed to continue growing, to continue living, and to never forget where she came from. The woman who had once wandered the streets had now found her place in the world, and she was ready for whatever came next. The years that followed were filled with joy, growth, and the occasional challenge. But through it all, Emily never once doubted the love she had found with Mr. Caldwell. Together, they built a life that was not only rich in experiences, but also in the love they shared. They traveled the world, explored new opportunities, and created memories that would last a lifetime. Emily's career at Caldwell Enterprises continued to flourish, and she became a respected leader within the company. Her past struggles were no longer something she hid from. They were part of the woman she had become, and they helped shape the future she was now living. But as much as Emily loved her work, it was the family they created together that truly fulfilled her. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter, and Emily poured her heart into raising them, determined to give them a life filled with love and opportunity, just as Mr. Caldwell had given her. As a family, they celebrated holidays, birthdays, and quiet weekends together. And when times were tough, they leaned on each other, just as they had in the beginning. One evening, as Emily sat on the porch, watching the sunset with Mr. Caldwell by her side, she reflected on everything that had brought her to this point. She thought back to the day she had returned his wallet, to the moment when everything changed. She had never imagined that one simple act of kindness could lead to such a beautiful life. She smiled softly, looking at Mr. Caldwell. "I never could have imagined this life," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "It's more than I ever thought I deserved." Mr. Caldwell took her hand in his eyes warm with love. "You deserve all of this, Emily. And more. You've worked so hard for everything we have, and I've watched you become the incredible woman you are today." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And because of that, I found everything I never knew I needed." He kissed the top of her head, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. It was a quiet moment, a moment of reflection, but also a moment of knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. They had built something beautiful, something that neither of them had expected, but both had worked for. As they sat there, holding hands, watching the sky change colors, Emily knew that this was her home. Not the house they lived in, but the life they had created together. A life filled with love, understanding, and endless possibilities. It was a life she had once only dreamed of, but now, it was her reality. She had found everything she had ever wanted, and she had found it with the man who had shown her what it meant to truly live, not just survive. And as she looked to the future, Emily knew that the best was yet to come. In this heartwarming tale of love, second chances, and personal growth, we dive into a life-changing journey in one of the most inspiring millionaire stories. A homeless woman, struggling to make ends meet, discovers a millionaire's lost wallet while searching for a job. Little did she know that this simple act of kindness would lead her to a life filled with opportunities, unexpected twists, and a love that would change everything. As she returns the wallet to its rightful owner, a successful CEO, their paths cross in a way that neither of them could have imagined. This touching story showcases the transformative power of kindness and the bond that forms between 2 people from vastly different worlds. Over time, they build a deep connection that turns into a beautiful love story, proving that even in the most unlikely of circumstances, dreams can come true. As the woman starts a new career and becomes part of the millionaire's world, she faces challenges, self-doubt, and fears of losing herself. But through it all, her journey is a testament to resilience and the importance of believing in oneself. As they embark on a life together, overcoming obstacles and celebrating triumphs, the millionaire stories we read are never quite as simple as they seem. This one, in particular, teaches us that success is not just about wealth, but about finding love, purpose, and the strength to rise above life's challenges. With every step, they create a future full of promise and happiness. This incredible transformation from homelessness to prosperity is a remarkable chapter in the collection of millionaire stories that inspire us all. From the moment the woman picks up the wallet to the day she walks down the aisle, this story proves that no matter where we start, our lives can change for the better. In the end, We see that love and personal growth are the true riches in life, making this one of the most touching and motivational millionaire stories ever told.